Another red day in the books for the stock market. We got a lot to cover today and some good news that can make or break the stock market and test the strength. We did have a big sell off midday in the SPY and overall market. We're going to be talking about some plays that you guys can make next week. And I'm kind of scoping out next week that I did last week that made me over 400%. We're going to be coming out with that a little bit later. So stay tuned for that. But with that being said, Jerome did come out and he kind of brought down the markets. It was supposed to be a little dinner, but it ended up being more. With that being said, he basically reaffirmed a wait and see approach, but also showed incredibly high uncertainty in the stock market. I mean, if you really think about it, the tariffs are pretty new. Not really new. I mean, we had it in the past, but to its scale, it is pretty big, and we just got to let all the companies and stuff like that adjust and just see what Trump really wants. There's a lot of things that people think he wants. He wants better deals being made, of course. I mean, it is pretty smart. We're just basically giving people back the tariffs and kind of just balancing overall trade, but also just everybody's standing on business to say we're not really getting good deals coming out with China and the US, which are two of the most like biggest trades. But we do got Japan, so big progress is being made with trade with Japan. So keep that in mind. That can bring some stocks up. So keep some Japanese stocks up in the overall market in Japan. But with that being said, we are looking pretty bad. But US tries to crush China's AI ambitions with chips. So if you guys know, recently NVIDIA, they came out with the H20 chip to kind of get into the works with Biden's old rule, and that chip they could sell to China basically. But with the H20 chip now, it's not really in Trump's order basically, so they can't even sell the H20 chips anymore. It happened, the same thing happened with Blackwell. They couldn't sell Blackwell to China, and that's why they made the H20 chip. But basically NVIDIA kind of came out with a little bit today, basically saying, and I'm going to be showing you guys that a little bit later, but basically saying that they're going to try to work to basically sell to China still. But we're going to get to that article in a minute. Let's just get to a little bit. So Bitcoin sentiment still close to extreme fear, green sign for recovery. So Bitcoin has been holding pretty strong, holding that $80,000 level. I think last week we were at that 77 to that $76,000 level. With that being said, I do recommend looking at MSTR, Coinbase, and IBIT if you guys want to do some option plays. And if you're just invested in Bitcoin overall, this is good, but not really great news yet for Bitcoin. I do want to see it back up to that 90 to that $100,000 level. But honestly, I think just wait and see approach, honestly, just with how the market and overall economy is looking. The NVIDIA CEO stressed importance of China market. So basically, the China market is big. If you guys know, I mean, the stock dropped 7% yesterday with that bad news, but they have a Beijing visit. So basically, with the ban to the H20 sales, we have to continue cooperation with China and basically just kind of trying to keep the relationship clean, basically, to say. So they didn't really immediately respond. But with that being said, but you can kind of guess, maybe they might make a new chip that, comes with the new rules, and or they might try to get something where they can still sell the H20 chips to China. But Trump was basically just saying, or the White House in general was basically saying the H20 chip can be made basically as powerful as a black. We've seen with DeepSeek AI what they could do. And I mean, some Blackwells were used in that. It was confirmed. But yeah. So some big news that can move the market. So Netflix. So before we get into like earnings and everything like that, a couple of days ago, you guys see Netflix spike up. They're basically saying that they're going to double their revenue by 2030. They want to get to, I think, 1 trillion market cap by 2030, and some other great news kind of hyping it up, kind of showing that their earnings is just going to be great. I mean, honestly, if they're hyping it up this much by 2030, the earnings has to be great, So a lot of people are kind of pumping it up. Price target of $1,140. We might even break that $1,000 level on Netflix. Right now, we're trading at $961. I think I seen that 983 a couple days ago. I think yesterday we did have a little bit of a sell-off, but look at that $1,000 level. We're gonna be looking at Netflix when we get to the charts later, but that $1,000 level is gonna be key. TSMC Q1 profit surges 60%, beats forecast. So they beat forecast basically. The stock is up a lot. So speaking of with the earnings, we got TSMC, which we already got, and that was great. So now we're just waiting on Netflix. And if this is great, it can show certainty in the market a little bit higher. People are saying that Netflix is going to be the new safe haven, basically. So keep Netflix earnings on your mind and on your radar, especially if you want to do some over the weekend trades. With that being said, if you're in option plays, we have 3 days now that is going to be holding. So the DTE might, bring down your profits a little bit. But with that being said, if you want to make some decent money, you can look at Netflix to the upside. If the hype is what it's all about, I'm not saying get into it because you're still gambling. But one more thing. So Thursday, we got initial jobless claims, housing starts, building permits, and we have a survey. So All this is an hour before market opens. This can kind of show a semi direction of where market is moving. This can move the market too in any direction. So if you got some overnight trades getting into the play today, just be careful, you know. So in the video, we'll basically provide services to the Chinese market. So like I said before, they might either just make a new chip or try to get their H20 basically selling in China. So let's get to the charts. We're going to start on SPY, everybody's favorite stock, especially if you're a day trader. So right now we did have that big sell off, but it did kind of balance back up, back to the points that we were at, that 530 level. So 530 is going to be indeed key. Once we broke that 530 over here, we broke down a lot and just started selling off. So I think today we're going to be starting off with that 530 level first. And if we break below that, look at 529, 528.5, 526.5, 523.5, 522.2, and that 520 level. Also look at those lows. So we kind of had a semi bounce off that 520, which is good. So look at that 520 today. If we do start selling off, this might be like a Black Friday to say, but I mean, it's Thursday, but we might have a bigger sell off today. Might even break below that 520. If we do have a sell off, I'm not saying we will, but we can get some incredibly bad news and bring us all the way down. But also, I think that 520 is going to be key. And also these levels to the downside, just breaking down, because we did kind of have a little bit of a bounce at that 526.5 yesterday, but then we started bouncing lower and even broke below that 523.5 level. To the upside, I will be looking at that 533, 535, 537.5, and that 540 is going to be key for today. And honestly, it really just depends on news. I do recommend looking at news. So a play that I did yesterday, and I kind of called it out to you guys before the market opened. So hopefully you guys can kind of use this as reference. But basically, how a decent day trade should go, I go for 10 to 15% trades, sometimes 20 if it's looking decent. Yesterday I was gonna cancel my trade, but then it already filled. So I was gonna try to go for 20% yesterday instead, but just got my 20. But with that being said, I do recommend looking at how it opens and the point at where it opens. You can even mark it too to say, but honestly, if you look at the past couple of days, how it opened up, it's gonna go one direction up, and then normally it comes back down to open. You know, I mean, it's been doing that a frequent amount of times, and that's how you can make easy money. You don't want to do a call or put right away, because sometimes, you know, let's say to this day, it would have took you longer. Let's say this day, for some reason, you want to do a call, you would have been cooked because you would have got that call and it would have never even filled, not even the next day. But if you would have waited and then just let it sell off a little bit and you got your call here, you would have still made a decent amount of money going to the upside. So same thing, the opposite. So let's say this day it opened up down here and you got your, it went up, of course, and you got your put, you would have definitely made a lot of money on this little sell off right here, especially with the timing. You would have made a decent amount of money to the downside. But also the same thing is that you can wait for it to sell off again and then go back up. And then you can even hold that put because you got it up here anyway. Your average cost is like 543. You could have sold it all the way down to that 536, and or you could have just sold it at that 538. I would have just sold it at 538 if I was holding it. But kind of the same thing. Yesterday I did the same thing. I waited and I let it go up a little bit. And then I think at around this level, the 533 level, I bought my put. You know, it went up a little bit, was down a little bit, but then it started selling off, and I initially made my money right here. So it's basically the same thing, just to see where it opens up at. You know, it's going to go one direction, and by, you know, like 45, so whatever time the market opens for you. So let's say normal market open is 330, I think 330, sorry, 330. So you wait until 345 to see what direction it's going, and then you finally get into your trade. Then just don't try to trade around market open, just because sometimes, you know, you won't even touch it, just like this day right here where, you know, we started selling off and it didn't even touch market open again. So you could play it both ways, doing it that way, and maybe even have 100%. But same thing, I'm not going to say it's going to go green or red. You can't really guess. You just got to wait and see 5 to 15 minutes, you know. So let's say if it does go up, we might even test that 535 level. I might wait until it goes up a little bit, maybe $1 to $2 to $3, wait until maybe 5 to 15 minutes, and then buy my put option, just because normally last day of the week, you know, you got a lot of expirations. People might sell off, but also at the same time, people can buy too. So just keep in mind, and also have news on your mind and on your radar too, because if you don't have news, sometimes it could be some good news, like you can get, oh, trade deal is even now, you know. You get some crazy news like that, you're going to get washed out. So just watch it go up and then buy your little put option, and then if it goes down, I don't really recommend buying a call option right now, and especially with the market and it's the last day of the week. But with that being said, if it does go up first, you can buy your little put option, hold it for a little bit, go for your 5-10%, or even just hold it if you want to. If you want to be a savage, I personally just want to you go with a plan, but go with that. But with that little lesson, those are some levels to look at for the SPY. Let's go to Apple. So Apple is moving okay. So another thing that I want to do is next week I want to scope out a 2-week trade, a 2-week swing trade. Basically, I'm not going to hold it for 2 weeks, but I'm going to hold the expiration for 2 to 3 weeks. So basically, Apple is trading at a pretty low level right now, and especially we seen before we were trading at around that $98 level. It bounced up, but this was honestly with good news. And on this day, I bought a call option to kind of just hold it for a couple weeks, but then it went up the next day and I made 400% with that trade. So I'm kind of trying to scope out the same thing at around that 190 level to that 195 next week, unless, I mean, we get good news, of course. But I want to see it at that 195 to that 190 before I buy a long-term call. Because honestly, if good news does come out, you might even break past that 200 level once again. So lower you get it, the more money you'll make, basically. But for Apple, for a day trade, I'll be looking at that 195 and that 190 to the downside. If we break below that 190, which I highly doubt, but we might be able to. If we break below 190, look at 185. To the upside, I'll be looking at 198. That 200 is going to be key. 202, 206.4, and that 208 and that 210 level for Apple. NVIDIA, I think I'm going to be scoping out a NVIDIA one too. This bad news is bad for the company, especially the China trade. But I think the lowest for NVIDIA that we can get, again, is that 95 to that $90 level. Honestly, if I see it below that $100 level, I'm going to buy that long-term call and just hold it, maybe even a month call for this one. And then you should make a decent amount of money with that one too, especially if it goes back up, rallies back up like it did that one day. So if you look at this day, we were all the way down to that $86 level, right? If you would have bought your call there, your like long-term call too, literally the next day we're up 105. You would have made a parabolic amount of money. I didn't get in that trade, but that's just one trade I was scoping out. So if you do see it at those lows, honestly, just get a call. You got to know the value of a stock, and it should go back up. There's normally like a balance point of where a stock is trading at, and I think Nvidia is at 105 to that 110 level. Honestly, between 100 to that 110 level, I think is like a normal trading thing for Nvidia right now, especially with the uncertainty in the market. People are still going to load up on Nvidia. People are still going to believe big on Nvidia. But yeah, so to the upside, for day trades, I'll be looking at 107, 108.5, and that 110 level. And then to the downside, that 105, if we break below that, I'll be looking at 103, 101, and that $100 level is going to be key. If we break below that, 95, and that $93 level. For Tesla, Tesla's looking okay, but it's still looking kind of bearish. I'll be looking at that 250 level, that 252 level, 255, and that 260 level. And to the downside, I'll be looking at that 242, 240, and that 235 level to the downside. Bitcoin, like I said before, we'll go back to the charts. So MSTR, just watch how Bitcoin moves. If it moves up, MSTR is going to move up, moves down, MSTR is going to move down. With that being said, it also moves with SPY. So watch SPY as you're doing it, because sometimes if SPY is going down and Bitcoin is going up, sometimes you might just get some like red candle, green candle, like it's just going to keep moving around. With that being said, to the upside, I'll be looking at 319.7, 320, 325, and 330. To the downside, that 310 level, 305, and that 300 level is going to be key. But with that being said, thanks for watching the video. Smash that like button, subscribe if you guys are new. Let me know how much you guys made this week and some stocks that you guys are watching and some plays that you guys are looking at today. Peace out.